all right. It was one of those picture-perfect July afternoons in Atlanta when the Georgia sun hangs high and proud in the sky. The kind of day that makes you grateful for simple luxuries like a backyard pool. I had just finished my morning shift at Grady Memorial Hospital, where I work as a respiratory therapist, and was preparing for a 12-hour night shift, starting at 7 p.m. The brief window of time at home was meant to be for rest, but my 3 kids, Jaden, 12, Zoe, 10, and little Cameron, 8, had been begging to use our pool all week. "Dad, please. It's so hot and you promised," Zoe had pleaded that morning, her bright eyes impossible to resist, even as I was rushing out the door at 5 a.m. I had indeed promised, but I also knew I needed at least a few hours of sleep before my next shift. That's when divine timing intervened. My brother Devin had called the night before, mentioning he was passing through town on a 3-day leave from his Army Ranger unit at Fort Benning. When he offered to come by and help out with the kids, I couldn't have been more relieved. "Man, I'd appreciate that more than you know," I told him. "The kids have been dying to use the pool and I need to crash for a few hours before my night shift." Devin had always been the dependable one in our family. 4 tours in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq had given him a calm under pressure that seemed almost superhuman. He was the perfect person to supervise the kids while I got some rest. Our home in the Oak Grove neighborhood wasn't the biggest on the block, but it was the culmination of 15 years of hard work, smart investments, and careful planning. The 3-bedroom colonial, with its recently added pool, had been our dream. And when the opportunity came up 2 years ago, my wife Serena and I jumped at it. The neighborhood was predominantly white but generally welcoming, at least most of our neighbors were. There had been a few incidents. Nothing overtly hostile, just those small moments that make you wonder, the nervous smiles that don't reach the eyes, the surprised looks when people realize which house is yours, the way conversations sometimes halt when you approach at neighborhood gatherings. But nothing had prepared us for Patricia Whitfield. Patricia lived 3 houses down in a slightly larger home with pristine landscaping, and a husband who seemed to exist solely to nod in agreement with whatever she said. In the years since we'd moved in, she had reported us to the HOA 6 times. Once for leaving our trash cans out 12 hours too long when Serena was hospitalized with pneumonia. Once for Jaden's basketball hoop, which was promptly removed. Once for the excessive noise of Cameron's 8th birthday party that ended at 7 p.m. Twice for alleged parking violations when family visited, and once for the unsightly garden boxes Serena had lovingly built for her vegetables. Each complaint was filed with surgical precision to just barely stay within the bounds of HOA rules while making our lives more difficult. Each one was delivered with that same saccharine smile and a high-pitched, "I'm just concerned about maintaining our neighborhood standards." That afternoon, as I collapsed into bed around 1 p.m., I could hear the joyful splashes and laughter from the backyard. Devin had arrived right on time and the kids were ecstatic to see their uncle and get into the pool. Our backyard was fenced for privacy, with a 650 wooden fence I had installed myself. The pool area was further enclosed, with a safety gate required by both county regulations and common sense when you have children. From my upstairs bedroom window, I could see Devin sitting at the patio table, one eye on his phone and the other vigilantly watching the kids as they played Marco Polo. I set my alarm for 5 p.m., giving me 4 hours to recharge before I had to shower, eat something, and head back to the hospital. As sleep claimed me, I had no idea that Patricia Whitfield was about to escalate her campaign against our family from petty complaints to something far more sinister. I learned later that at approximately 2:17 p.m., while I was deep in much-needed sleep, Patricia had been power walking through the neighborhood, her daily routine, according to our next-door neighbor Tasha, when she passed our house. The sounds of children laughing and splashing apparently drew her attention. Rather than continue her walk, she paused at our side gate, where a small gap in the wooden slats, something I'd been meaning to fix, allowed her to peer into our backyard. What she saw was simply my 3 children enjoying our pool under the supervision of my brother. What she chose to see was something entirely different, and what happened next would spark a confrontation that would ripple through our neighborhood for months to come. Devin later told me that the first indication something was wrong was when the side gate rattled violently. He looked up from his phone to see a hand reaching over the top, fumbling with the latch. His military training kicking in, he stood immediately, calling for the kids to stay in the shallow end of the pool as he approached the gate. Before he could reach it, the gate swung open with enough force to bang against the fence, and there stood Patricia Whitfield, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. Designer sunglasses perched on her head, dressed in a matching fuchsia workout set that probably cost more than my weekly paycheck. Her face a mask of righteous indignation. "Excuse me," she had barked, not even acknowledging Devon as she stormed onto our property. "What is going on here? Where are these children's parents?" And so began an afternoon that would forever change the dynamics of our quiet suburban neighborhood. An afternoon I slept through until the very end, unaware that while I rested, my brother was about to teach Patricia Whitfield a lesson in consequences that no amount of HOA power could shield her from. Devon says his first instinct was to position himself between Patricia and the pool, where my children had fallen silent, treading water and watching wide-eyed as this stranger invaded our backyard. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Private property," Devon said, his voice carrying the calm authority that comes from years of commanding troops in high-stress situations. At 6'2", with shoulders like a linebacker, my brother cuts an imposing figure, especially when he's standing his ground. Patricia barely glanced at him. Instead, she marched toward the pool edge, pointing an accusatory finger at my children. "These children are unsupervised and making excessive noise. I've had enough of this family disrupting the neighborhood." Her voice carried that particular pitch that can cut through glass, the kind that makes dogs howl and neighbors peek through curtains. Devon stepped into her path. "Ma'am, I am their uncle and I am supervising them. Again, you are trespassing on private property. Please exit through the gate you just entered." Patricia finally looked at Devon, really looked at him, and her expression shifted from indignation to something uglier. She took a half step back, clutching her designer purse closer to her body. "And who exactly are you?" "I know the family that lives here and you don't live here," she said, her tone implying that his presence was somehow suspicious. "I'm Devon Harris, brother of Elijah Harris, who owns this home. I'm watching my niece and nephews while their father rests before his night shift at the hospital." His voice remained level, but he later told me that red flags were already popping up in his mind. 20 years in military service, including several as an equal opportunity advisor for his battalion, had given him a sixth sense for when something was about to take a turn toward prejudice. Patricia scoffed. "Well, I find that hard to believe. These children have been screaming for over an hour, and it's disrupting the entire neighborhood. This is exactly the kind of behavior that brings down property values." The irony wasn't lost on Devon. Our backyard was surrounded by houses set at least 50 yards apart with mature oak trees providing additional sound barriers. The nearest neighbor, who might hear the children, was Tasha Johnson, and she had her own grandchildren over to swim regularly. My daughter Zoe, always the brave one, swam to the edge of the pool nearest to where Devon stood. "Uncle Devon, who is that lady? Why is she mad at us?" Before Devon could answer, Patricia interjected. "Young lady, proper children use indoor voices even when outdoors. Didn't your parents teach you any manners?" Devon's military bearings slipped for just a moment as his eyes narrowed. "Ms. Whitfield. Patricia Whitfield. I'm the vice president of the Oak Grove Homeowners Association," she replied, jutting her chin forward as if this bestowed upon her some special authority. "Ms. Whitfield, I'm going to say this one more time, and I need you to listen carefully. You are trespassing on private property. These children are under my supervision, and they are behaving appropriately for children enjoying a pool on a summer day. You need to leave now or I will be forced to call the authorities." Patricia's face flushed red, either from embarrassment or anger, probably both. "Call the authorities? That's rich, I've already called them." This revelation stunned even Devon. "You called the police? On what grounds?" Patricia's voice rose higher, and she began gesturing wildly with her manicured hands. Public indecency and disturbance. These children are practically naked in full view of the neighborhood, screaming at the top of their lungs. Plus, there's clearly an unauthorized adult on the premises. Devin looked over at my kids, all three wearing appropriate swimwear. Jaden and Cameron in swim trunks. Zoe in a modest one-piece swimsuit with a swim skirt she'd picked out herself because she loved the pattern of seahorses on it. They were in a private fenced backyard in a pool with proper safety measures in place, being watched by a responsible adult family member. Ms. Whitfield, Devin said slowly, measuring each word, these children are appropriately dressed for swimming. They are on private property. They are supervised. There is nothing indecent occurring here. What you are doing, however, is trespassing and harassment. Patricia's eyes darted around as if searching for some violation she could point to. Finding nothing obvious, she switched tactics. Well, I don't recognize you from the neighborhood. How do I know you're authorized to be here? For all I know, you could be anyone. The implication was clear and it made Devin's jaw tighten. Later, he told me he had to mentally count to 5 before responding. Ma'am, I don't need to be authorized by anyone but my brother to be on his property watching his children. Now, since you've already called the police, I suggest we wait for them at the front of the house after you. He gestured toward the gate. Patricia didn't budge. Instead, she pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of the pool area, including my children. I'm documenting everything for the HOA and the police. That crossed a line for Devin. Put your phone away. You do not have permission to photograph these minors. I have every right, this is evidence. Devin stepped directly in front of her camera. No, you don't. And if you continue, I'll add invasion of privacy and unauthorized photography of minors to the complaints I'll be filing. The standoff might have continued indefinitely if not for the sound of a police siren in the distance. Patricia's face lit up with vindictive satisfaction. Finally, now we'll see who's in the right here. Devin turned to the kids who had huddled together at the far end of the pool, watching the confrontation with wide eyes. Everything's okay. Guys, keep swimming, but stay in the shallow end. I'm going to talk to the police officer. He escorted Patricia to the front yard, not trusting her to leave on her own, and positioned himself where he could keep an eye on both the approaching police car and the gate leading to the backyard. As the cruiser pulled up to the curb, Patricia practically bounced with anticipation, ready to launch into her grievances before the officer had even stepped out of the vehicle. Little did she know, the arrival of the police would mark the beginning of her downfall rather than her triumph. Officer James Reeves had been with the DeKalb County Police Department for 15 years. A veteran of the force with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes that had seen too much, he approached situations with a methodical calm that had diffused countless tense encounters over the years. As he stepped out of his cruiser and surveyed the scene, a clearly agitated woman practically vibrating with indignation and a composed man standing with military bearing. His experienced eyes were already gathering information. Patricia pounced immediately. Officer, I'm so glad you're here. This man is watching these improperly supervised children who are causing a disturbance. Officer Reeves held up a hand. Ma'am, I need you to slow down. One thing at a time. Officer Reeves, can I get both your names, please? Devin stepped forward, hands visible at his sides, a habit from too many checkpoints in war zones. Devin Harris, sir. I'm watching my brother's children in their backyard pool. This woman entered the property without permission through a side gate and has refused to leave when asked multiple times. Patricia bristled. Patricia Whitfield, Vice President of the Oak Grove Homeowners Association. These children have been screaming for hours and they're practically naked in public view. And this man, she gestured dismissively at Devin, claims to be their uncle, but I've never seen him before, and the homeowner isn't present. Officer Reeves nodded, taking notes on a small pad. Ms. Whitfield, you called about public indecency and a disturbance. Yes, it's completely unacceptable. And where exactly was this occurring? Patricia pointed toward our backyard. In their pool. You can hear them from the street. Officer. Reeves cocked his head. The pool that's behind a privacy fence on private property? Well, yes, but Ma'am, children swimming in a private pool on private property are not committing public indecency, regardless of how loud they might be. His tone was professional, but firm. Patricia wasn't deterred. But there are noise. Ordinances, and this man, again the dismissive gesture toward Devon. I don't believe he's authorized to be here. Devon maintained his composure. Officer, I'm Elijah Harris's brother. Elijah owns this home and is currently asleep inside before his night shift at Grady Memorial. I'm on leave from Fort Benning and offered to watch the children so he could rest. I have ID if needed. Officer Reeves nodded. May I see your ID, sir? Devon produced his military ID without hesitation. Patricia interrupted again. That doesn't prove he's related to the homeowner. Officer Reeves turned to her. Ms. Whitfield, how did you come to be in the backyard? The question seemed to catch her off guard. Well, I heard the disturbance while on my walk and investigated. So you entered private property without permission? Officer Reeves clarified. I had every right as HOA vice president to investigate violations. Devon interjected calmly. Officer, our security camera caught Ms. Whitfield pushing open our gate and entering without permission or announcement. She then approached the pool where the children were swimming and began taking photos of them without consent. This was a slight bluff. We did have a security camera, but it was focused on the front door, not the side gate. Patricia didn't know that, though, and her face paled slightly. You were taking photographs of minors in swimwear without parental consent? Officer Reeves asked, his tone shifting subtly. For documentation purposes only, Patricia protested. For the HOA? Officer Reeves sighed almost imperceptibly. Ms. Whitfield, HOA authority doesn't override trespassing laws or privacy laws. You entered private property without permission, which constitutes trespassing. Taking photographs of minors without parental consent, especially in a swimming context, raises serious concerns. Patricia's indignation was morphing into alarm. But they were disturbing the peace. I had legitimate concerns. If you have noise complaints, the proper procedure is to call the non-emergency police line, not to enter someone's property, Officer Reeves explained. Now, I'd like to see the area in question. Devon led Officer Reeves to the backyard gate with Patricia trailing behind, her earlier confidence deflating with each step. When they entered the backyard, my children were sitting on the pool steps, speaking in hushed tones, clearly intimidated by the earlier confrontation. Officer Reeves took in the scene, a well-maintained pool with proper safety fencing, 3 children in appropriate swimwear, no visible bottles or safety hazards. Kids look like they're just enjoying a summer swim to me, he remarked. He approached the pool. Hey there, I'm Officer Reeves. Are you folks doing okay? Jaden, always the protective oldest brother, spoke up. Yes, sir. We were just swimming with our Uncle Devon. Did we do something wrong? The innocent question seemed to affect Officer Reeves. No, son, you didn't do anything wrong. You're allowed to have fun in your own pool. Patricia couldn't contain herself. Officer, you're not seeing the whole picture. They were screaming and causing a disturbance earlier. Officer Reeves turned to her. Ms. Whitfield, even if they were being loud earlier, children playing in a pool during daytime hours is generally not considered a noise violation. Our department typically doesn't enforce noise complaints unless they're occurring during quiet hours, which in this county are 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Patricia's face contorted with frustration. So, you're just going to let them get away with this? What about the unauthorized adult? Officer Reeves's patience was visibly wearing thin. Mr. Harris has provided identification and a reasonable explanation for his presence. There's no evidence of any criminal activity occurring here. He turned to Devon. Sir, is the homeowner available? Devon nodded. He's sleeping, but I can wake him if necessary. I'd appreciate talking to him briefly if possible. This was when Devon came upstairs and gently shook me awake. I remember the disorientation of being pulled from deep sleep, the immediate panic that something had happened to one of my kids. Elijah, everything's fine, but there's a police officer downstairs who needs to speak with you, Devon said quietly. That Whitfield woman from down the street called the cops on the kids for swimming. I sat up, rubbing my face. She did what now? Groggy, pulling on a t-shirt and sweatpants, I made my way downstairs to find Officer Reeves in my living room. Patricia hovering near the front door and my children wrapped in towels on the couch, looking confused and worried. "Mr. Harris, I'm Officer Reeves. Sorry to disturb your rest." I shook his hand. "No problem, officer. My brother says there's some kind of issue." Officer Reeves explained the situation succinctly. As he spoke, I felt a slow burn of anger building, especially when he mentioned Patricia taking photos of my children. "So, let me get this straight," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "Ms. Whitfield entered my property without permission, harassed my children,